Welcome back to Stoic Flow, Successful, Fulfilled Friends.
Everyone wants change, but most people chase it the wrong way. We set goals, we dream big, we wait for motivation, and then we wonder why nothing sticks. James Clear, in Atomic Habits, reveals a truth the Stoics knew centuries ago. Real transformation doesn't happen in grand gestures, but in small, repeated actions that shape who we become. In this video, we're going to explore how Stoic wisdom and Atomic Habits align, and how you can use them together to build discipline, peace of mind, and lasting change in your daily life. 1. Identity-based habits. We often chase goals like trophies, losing 10 pounds, earning more money, or reading a certain number of books. But James Clear, in Atomic Habits, reminds us that true change doesn't come from chasing outcomes. It comes from shifting identity. Instead of asking, "What do I want to achieve?" ask, "Who do I want to become?" This is exactly what the Stoics taught nearly 2,000 years ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." He didn't say to merely perform good acts occasionally or to seek recognition for them. He urged us to become the kind of person for whom good action is natural. The Stoics understood that every action is a vote for the type of person you are becoming. Each time you choose patience over anger, honesty over deceit, or discipline over indulgence, you reinforce your identity as someone who lives with virtue. The power lies in repetition. A single act of courage doesn't make you courageous, but 1,000 small acts of courage, practiced daily, form the bedrock of character. So, don't simply aim to do virtuous things. Aim to be virtuous. See yourself as the kind of person who embodies wisdom, justice, temperance, and courage. From there, your actions naturally align. Because the truth is, goals will come and go, but identity, the kind of person you are becoming, endures. And that is where real freedom lives. 2. The power of small actions. We tend to believe that transformation requires grand gestures, a sudden breakthrough, a dramatic life change, a bold resolution. But as James Clear reminds us in Atomic Habits, true change is rarely explosive. It's subtle. It's the quiet accumulation of small, consistent actions that compound into something extraordinary. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus taught, "No great thing is created suddenly." Just as a tree grows from an unseen seed and a sculptor shapes marble chip by chip, our character is formed not by rare moments of brilliance, but by the countless small choices we make each day. Think about it. Choosing patience in a single frustrating moment may feel insignificant, but when practiced over and over, it reshapes your nature. Choosing moderation at one meal may seem trivial, yet repeated daily, it becomes a life of temperance. Choosing honesty in one conversation may seem like nothing, but with practice, it forms a reputation and a conscience aligned with truth. This is the compound interest of virtue. Just as money grows when invested consistently, the soul grows strong when we invest in small, daily acts of wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control. So, do not underestimate the power of what feels small. Every decision you make is training your soul. Every action is a step either toward vice or virtue. The Stoic asks, not what grand thing will I do today, but what small thing will I do well and repeat until it defines who I am. 3. Environment shapes behavior. We often believe our willpower is enough to carry us through any challenge. But James Clear, in Atomic Habits, makes an important observation. Your environment often shapes your behavior more than sheer discipline does. If you want to change your habits, change what surrounds you. The Stoics understood this deeply. They warned that the soul is impressionable, shaped by the people we spend time with, the things we expose ourselves to, and the environments we choose. Epictetus put it plainly, if you spend your time with idle men, you will become idle yourself. Think about your daily surroundings. If your environment tempts you toward distraction, you'll drift from focus. If you surround yourself with people who complain, you'll find your own spirit sinking into negativity. But if your space is ordered, if your companions embody discipline and wisdom, you will rise to their level almost without realizing it. This is not about perfection, but about alignment. A Stoic does not try to conquer every temptation head-on. They simply arrange their lives so that virtue is the natural path, not the difficult one. Want to practice temperance? Remove excess. Don't just resist it. Want to be more just? Spend time with those who live fairly and honorably. The truth is, we are always being shaped. The question is, by what? By chaos or order? By vice or virtue? By chance or by deliberate design? A Stoic chooses their environment wisely, knowing it is silently sculpting their soul. 4. The Plateau of Latent Potential. One of the greatest frustrations in life is putting in effort without seeing results. You go to the gym for weeks, but the mirror doesn't change. You practice patience, yet still feel anger rising. You write daily, but your words seem clumsy. James Clear calls this the Plateau of Latent Potential. It's the hidden phase of growth, where your effort feels invisible, but transformation is quietly happening beneath the surface, like ice warming from 29 to 32 degrees. For hours, nothing seems to change, until suddenly, it melts. The Stoics understood this truth long before modern psychology. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, what is not good for the hive is not good for the bee. In other words, growth is interconnected, but not always visible. Virtue matures silently, deep within, before it reveals itself outwardly. Epictetus would say, you are not training for applause today, you are training for strength tomorrow. Just as an athlete doesn't see their muscles grow each time they lift, the philosopher doesn't see immediate results in character, but with patience, both are transformed. So, when progress feels invisible, do not despair. Trust that each repetition is shaping you, even if you cannot yet see it. Small actions compound silently until they break through suddenly. A Stoic accepts the hidden season of growth, because they know that true change is not immediate. It is inevitable if only you persist.
5. Goals versus systems. Most of us live chasing goals, a promotion, a milestone, a finish line. And while goals can give direction, James Clear points out in Atomic Habits that they are not what creates lasting progress. What truly matters are the systems, the daily practices that make the outcome inevitable. The Stoics would agree. They taught that outcomes are not within our control, only our actions are. Seneca wrote, "Our business is to play the assigned part well, but to choose it belongs to another." The Stoic does not cling to the goal, because the result is fate's domain. What belongs to us is the process, the system. For example, instead of saying, "I want to be calm," the Stoic builds a system. Daily reflection, practicing patience in conversation, preparing the mind for adversity each morning. Instead of saying, "I want to be wise," they commit to reading, journaling, and questioning their assumptions daily. The paradox is that when you focus less on the goal and more on the system, you often reach the outcome anyway. But even if you don't, you still succeed, because you lived today with discipline and virtue. A goal can be missed, delayed, or denied, but a system, a way of living aligned with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, is always within reach. So don't ask only, "What do I want to achieve?" Ask instead, "What system of daily actions will make me the kind of person I wish to be?"
6. Breaking bad habits with inversion. Bad habits rarely vanish through sheer willpower. James Clear teaches a principle called inversion. Instead of only trying to force good habits, make bad ones invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. In other words, weaken the roots of the habit until it withers. The Stoics understood this well. They warned us not to wrestle endlessly with vice, but to starve it of attention. Seneca wrote, "The mind must be freed from the passions if you would be happy." And the way to free the mind is not by fueling temptation with focus, but by quietly stepping away from it. Think about anger. The more you rehearse your outrage, the stronger it grows. But if you pause, withdraw, and refuse to indulge the flame, it fades. Think about indulgence. The more you keep your house stocked with excess, the more you'll consume. But if you remove the source, you practice temperance with ease. Vice thrives in an environment of attention and availability. But when you make it invisible, when you don't place yourself where envy, anger, or excess can feed, it weakens. Virtue, by contrast, becomes easier when you make it the obvious, simple choice. A Stoic does not merely fight temptation. They reshape their life so that virtue is supported and vice is starved. Because in the end, breaking a bad habit is less about overpowering it and more about refusing to give it oxygen.
7. The role of repetition over motivation. Most people wait for motivation before taking action. They think, "I'll work when I feel inspired. I'll practice discipline when I feel strong." But James Clear reminds us in Atomic Habits, action doesn't come from motivation. Motivation often comes from action. Repetition, not fleeting bursts of energy, is what shapes lasting change. The Stoics understood this long before. Epictetus taught, "If you want to be a writer, write. If you want to be a philosopher, practice philosophy." He didn't say, "Wait until you feel ready." He urged us to begin, and to begin again every day. Motivation is a mood. It rises and falls with circumstances. A good night's sleep, a burst of excitement, a surge of emotion. But repetition builds character regardless of how you feel. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the habit of acting rightly in its presence. Temperance is not occasional restraint, but the repeated choice of moderation over excess. Each repetition carves grooves into the soul, shaping who we are becoming. Skipping one practice matters less than the mindset of persistence, showing up again and again until the action becomes part of your nature. The Stoic does not ask, "Do I feel like it today?" They ask, "What is the right thing to do today?" And then they do it, regardless of mood. Because in the end, virtue is not built on inspiration, it is built on repetition. 8. Habit tracking and reflection. James Clear highlights a powerful tool in Atomic Habits: Habit tracking. By recording your actions, you make your progress visible, and each mark reinforces your identity. The act of seeing your efforts stack up becomes its own form of motivation. The Stoics practiced something strikingly similar long before charts and checklists existed. Each night, they engaged in reflection. Seneca wrote, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said. I conceal nothing from myself." This was their form of tracking, not just counting actions, but weighing them against their values. Did I act with courage today? Did I practice justice in my dealings? Did I give in to anger, or did I master myself? Reflection provides feedback. It reveals patterns we might otherwise ignore. Just as a written habit tracker exposes whether you are consistent in exercise, Stoic journaling exposes whether you are consistent in virtue. It's a mirror for the soul. The power lies not in self-criticism, but in honest awareness. You cannot improve what you refuse to measure. You cannot strengthen a virtue you never pause to examine. So, at the end of each day, pause, write, reflect. Track not just what you did, but who you were becoming. Because the truest measure of progress is not whether you reached your goals, but whether your character is growing closer to wisdom and virtue.
9. The 2-minute rule. One of the greatest obstacles to growth is overthinking the start. We want to exercise, but we imagine the whole workout. We want to read, but we picture finishing the book. The weight of the entire task makes us hesitate. James Clear offers a simple solution, the 2-minute rule. Make every habit so small that it takes less than 2 minutes to begin. Want to read more? Just open the book. Want to meditate? Sit down and close your eyes. Want to exercise? Put on your shoes. Momentum carries you forward once you start. The Stoics lived by the same principle. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do." He didn't tell us to conquer everything at once. He told us to begin, here, now, in the smallest way possible. Courage is not proven in a single grand act, but in beginning with small moments of bravery. Temperance is not about renouncing all pleasure at once, but about saying no once, and then again tomorrow. Greatness is built on beginnings, repeated daily. When the mind resists, shrink the task. Start with what you can do now, in 2 minutes or less. Once you begin, you are no longer fighting against the mountain, only taking the next step. The Stoic knows, the path to virtue is not walked in leaps. It is walked in simple, small beginnings, and those beginnings are always within your power.
10. The compound interest of character. James Clear describes habits as the compound interest of self-improvement. Just as money grows when invested consistently, small habits compound into profound change over time. Each choice may seem insignificant on its own, but together they shape destiny. The Stoics framed this in terms of character. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that life is nothing more than the sum of thoughts and actions. Such as are your habitual thoughts, such also will be the character of your mind. One act of courage does not make you courageous, but 1,000 small acts, repeated over years, shape you into someone unshakable. One choice of honesty does not make you just, but living with honesty day after day makes justice your very nature. This is why the Stoics urged vigilance in the smallest matters, for every decision trains the soul, moving it closer to virtue or dragging it toward vice. And no decision is too small, because each one compounds silently, building the habits of tomorrow's self.
Think of your daily actions as deposits in the bank of character. They may not seem to matter today, but over time they create wealth or poverty of the soul. The lesson is simple. If you want to live with wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, invest daily in small acts of each. The returns may not be immediate, but they are inevitable. Because the greatest wealth is not measured in possessions, but in the compound interest of a virtuous life.